the pass. Okay, hi again. This is Sohaila Bana, West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council. Thank you everyone for coming. Appreciate it. We have Mark Tukman with us to let us know how to read the map that he has worked so hard to make. So sorry about it. Elizabeth, you want to go next?
Elizabeth Stage, Oakland Fire Safe Council.
Thank you very much. Carol?
I'm Carol Rice, and I'm supporting Mark in helping him answer questions, and because I'm an East Bay resident, I'm happy to help out.
Excellent. Where in East Bay are you, if I may ask?
I'm actually in Alamo, but I helped Mark with the both the decision rules for the fuels, as well as doing a lot of ground truthing of the fuels, and then had some input on the hazard and risk assessments.
Excellent. Thank you. Michelle?
Hello, I'm Michelle Reinhardt with the Contra Costa County Fire Protection District. I am the county coordinator, which is a grant position. And I am happy to be here with Mark this evening. Carol, thank you so much for assisting. I appreciate all of your emails and support.
Thank you. Cliff?
Hello, my name is Cliff Watts. I'm just a regular resident. I live in El Sobrante in the incorporated part of Richmond. And I'm just interested in this because I've been following the development of these maps. And I'm interested to see how they've been sort of combined together so all the information is readily available in one place and hopefully fairly easy to view. Thank you.
Thanks, Cliff. Rebecca, please.
Yes, my name is Rebecca Rona, and I'm with the West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council.
Thank you. Marilyn?
Sorry, the recording message popped up. Yes, Marilyn Sarney. I'm VP of West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council.
Thank you very much. Mark, you have the floor and you can share the screen and please help us read the map.
All right. That sounds good. I actually want to share. I have a little bit of, let's see, can you see my screen?
It's yes,
Yes.
now we can.
You know, I'm gonna switch. What do you see? Do you see a map?
Nope.
We see your calendar, Mark.
All right, let's change that. Sorry, let's do this again. Here we go. Okay, so I did want to so in the lead up to this meeting, a few things came up. Questions that specifically one from Maryland, so I wanted to answer that. But here are the things that I was gonna go through, and maybe we want to add some things to this before I start. But I was gonna show the map and show you, as you asked, how to sort of interpret it. I was gonna answer the questions: why is the risk to structures in hexagons? So I can answer that briefly. And then I did add some things to the map since you've looked at it, just to clarify a couple of things. So I wanted to show you specifically what I added. And then I wanted to just zoom into the El Sobrante area just to look at the risk to structures there and the hazard, and sort of let that, you know, I don't know the area. I mean, I'm in Sonoma County. I've driven through the area. I've been there, but I don't know it. So I'm not the person to sort of advise on specific projects, but I can discuss the layers and show what I see in that area and what sort of occurs to me, or what catches my eye in the data sets. And then just a little bit about how kind of some of the things that I've seen happening in Sonoma County, and sort of the priorities that people are addressing in Sonoma County, and So those are the things. Is there anything else?
It's good for now. We may have
All right.
questions later on.
Yeah, and please just feel free to ask or comment or let it. This can be as free flowing as it gets. So I wanted to just bring up this app, which you all have a link to because Marilyn sent you a link to it, and it's publicly available, and it includes the risk to structures data set, which I just turned on here. And you can, use the swipe bar to expose the imagery beneath it. So, which is nice. So you don't have to squint to try to understand what the vegetation is underneath the hexagon. Note that this tool, the swipe tool, only works with the wildfire risk to structures data layer, not the other data layers. So I'm going to show you really quickly. So first, let me open the legend for this layer, which is, there's a lot of classes in here, but I'll just explain what this map is showing and talk about the legend for a minute, and then hopefully, and if you have any questions, just ask. So this layer, it's these 10-acre hexagons, and each hexagon is ranked with both its wildfire hazard from our wildfire hazard map and its structure density. And the map is, if you see imagery and you don't see a color, it's because the wildfire hazard is low or because there's no structures. So what you are seeing is places where the wildfire hazard is moderate, high, very high, or highest, the top 4 classes, and where there's at least one structure in the hexagon. And obviously the hazard comes from our hazard work, this model that we created, which I talked about at the last meeting and went through the inputs to that layer and how we created it. And the structure part of this map comes from structures that are a combination of structures derived from LiDAR data, airborne LiDAR data, which is a sensor that's on an aircraft. That combined with Microsoft's building footprint. So Microsoft took imagery very much like what you're seeing here, high resolution imagery, and they used deep learning to extract buildings from it. So we've got buildings coming from the Microsoft data, and we've got buildings coming from LiDAR. And together, those inform the structure density. So this is a map of wildfire hazard and structure density. And it's important to note that it doesn't address urban fire. It doesn't, our models and our fuel models and our hazard models really are meant to look at and model wildfire that's from vegetation, not fire that's in an urban area that's, that's spreading from house to house, for example. And I'll talk about that a little bit again when we address Marilyn's question, but so I just wanted to say that. And this is all again in the story map that Sohaila sent out, and the final report, in much more detail than I'm going into now. But let's just look and now try to decipher how to.
I'm sorry for interruption, but you allowed questions. So Elizabeth has a question, and then I have a question. Elizabeth, please minimize the length of your question because we don't want to interrupt the flow, but go ahead, please.
Sure thing, thanks. Could you be a little more precise on the definition of urban? In other words, house to house, I understand would be difficult to model, even in places where the houses are very close. But how about hexagons that have quite a lot of fuel load in them?
Yeah, And
such as a bunch of eucalyptus trees,
yeah,
like near my house. So
those are captured. That's captured in our modeling. Any vegetated fuel is captured. It's the
okay,
the
so you're not
non-vegetated fuel.
excluding
Nope.
urbanized areas
No.
that have the high fuel load that you're keeping track of with the flammable species.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
You're welcome.
That helps.
Time for
Yeah,
my
Mark,
question.
you might show the fuel layer and
Sure.
show how the because they're as small as 5 pixels. So it just it fingers into every other data set has as urban.
Yeah, so let me show that the fuel model here. And you'll see that for example, in El Sobrante, you see that the pockets of the grays in this fuel model, the grays and the light gray and the dark gray are either buildings or roads or hardscape. But anything that's green or yellow, light green, dark green, or yellow, is vegetated fuel. And so we're actually able to capture those sort of small pockets of vegetation inside of the urban area.
Is there a
Okay.
legend for this map? What is
Yes,
the red?
there is. Here, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. And to get to that legend, you can click this icon here, and then there's these two radio buttons at the bottom, and either the one so this is the properties that you don't care about, so you click this little button here and it'll show you the other layer. Let me decipher these. So NB is non-burnable, and we didn't invent the NB class. This is from a federal standard for wildland fuels that defines buildings as non-burnable. So it's called the Scottenberg, and Carol could talk more about it. But you'll notice that the buildings are NB, as are the roads, and the GRs, the yellows, are grass fuel models. The GSs are grass shrub fuel models. The SHs are shrub fuel models. The TUs are timber understory, so they're forested. The TLs are timber litter, also forested. So that's what these classes stand for. And Carol, go ahead.
And it's a misnomer. These guys these fuel models were created for conifer stands. They include hardwoods, but the name is timber. We know there's no timber here. So it's hardwoods and some Monterey pine stands. But the fuel characteristics still apply. And they do accommodate hardwoods, and they're pretty good representation of what we find.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go back to the risk to structures data set, and I'm going to turn the legend on for that actually, and just scroll through these classes again. So yeah, the grays are the moderate hazard, and you can see there's 5 within moderate hazard. There's 5 classes because there's varying structure densities. So moderate hazard 0.1 to 0.4 structures per acre, 0.5 to 0.9, 1 to 1.9, 2 to 2.9, and greater than 3 structures per acre. And then the yellows are high hazard with those 5 structure density classes. The brighter the yellow, the higher the structure density, but they're all high hazard if they're yellow. The oranges are very high hazard. The darker the orange, the higher the structure density. And then the reds are the highest hazard from our model. Now, I'm going to just show you something really quick because this is really helpful. I just added this. If you zoom in, it actually labels the polygons now. So it actually, you don't have to try to interpret the legend. So if you're like, what what is this one, you can just zoom in and it'll say on it, very high hazard, 0.1 to 0.4 structures per acre. You can also click on one of these and it'll pop up information about it.
That
So-
information was very difficult to decipher, but let me ask you one thing.
Yep.
In my mind, I came to the conclusion that it shows the level of damage if there is actually a wildfire. Like the dense structure is more orange or close to red. Lowest structure, I mean, I could have one house in one of those hexagons with the highest fire hazard, but because I'm the only building, it shows a moderate level. Is that true? Because so it's difficult actually to
No.
understand what it is. And also if that, what does it show? Does it show the level of damage if wildfire happens, or the probability of wildfire starting there, or I don't get it.
It's the hazard that wildfire would affect that hexagon, or the chance, the likelihood that you're going to have a wildfire affect that place. It doesn't have anything to do with the hazard ranking. The hazard ranking, moderate, high, very high, and highest, has nothing to do with whether or not there's a structure there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the hazard, not the risk.
Yes. So, and we can let's turn that on. So let's look at that. So I'm going to turn off the risk to structures and turn on the hazard. So this is the hazard.
Okay.
And so you'll see that there's high hazard all in areas where there are no structures at all. In fact, the highest hazard is in places where they're in this area where there's no structures.
Yeah, but
And
my question was about the hexagons.
yes. So when we turn the hexagons on, so the way that we got here, so Hella, was we took the hazard and we overlaid it with these hexagons. And so the areas that are orange are the places where there was high hazard in the hazard map. The places where, like here, I'm going to zoom in on Pinole Park. This area right here in Pinole Park is very high hazard, but since there's no structures at all in these hexagons, it doesn't even show up
That's what I'm
in this
saying.
layer.
So basically these hexagons show that if there is a wildfire, which areas would be most affected and damaged.
Yes.
So
Yes,
it
but
doesn't help us in terms of prevention. Like if it wanted to provide information about prevention, these green areas like that have no color on them, they are the ones that need to have fire breaks around them.
absolutely. Yeah. So the red areas, the way that I would think of it is these are the risk to structures map shows where where there's greatest risk to structures for wildfire.
And you know, Sahila, you might think about it as these are the targets. So these are the values at risk. So if you're gonna, on a broad region, if you were the person making all the decisions about where to put your fuel management, you'll try to find out where your biggest potential damage is from something. So yeah, these are your targets. So
Okay, thank you, Carol. So that's what I personally would like you to elaborate on, you and Mark, how it helps us with fuel management strategy. That's the most important thing to us. How do we read this map in terms of vegetation management?
Well, I would look at both. I mean, you want to look at both the risk to structures and the hazard. The hazard is, if you're looking to do vegetation management, I would look more at the hazard map than at the risk of structures, but look at them both. And what I see from here, I'll just kind of talk through how I was looking at this when I looked at it an hour ago, was that the areas that have where there's the greatest risk to structures in this area are this band of orange hexagons on the inside, in between the urban core and the wildlands. And there are also these yellow hexagons. And so, like this area right here is a good example by Panola Park. This area along the south side of El Sobrante is a good example of those areas with high wildfire risk to structures. So then if you look at the wildfire hazard layer and you say, well, where is there high hazard that's, close to those areas that have high risk to structures? It's this, this band of vegetation. If you can see my mouse, that goes from Alvarado Park over to Wildcat Canyon Regional Park, and then this band of highest hazard that goes through the regional parks here and then across through Pinole Park. So those are the areas that you start to think about when you're prioritizing project. I mean, it shouldn't be, it should be obvious. I'm sure it's obvious to all of you that that's the case, that, these areas of high hazard closest to the, the urban core, are the ones that probably need to be addressed first. So
can I ask, so the areas of high hazard, have you overlaid the eucalyptus forest? Because as I look at this in the area where I live, I can see where the eucalyptus trees are.
Yeah, so let me turn on our mapping of eucalyptus. So we have a map that we created that shows eucalyptus, pine, and cypress, which are also, potentially hazardous fields, especially Monterey pine and knobcone pine, which you don't have much of there, and then non-native forests. So I'm going to turn those on right now, and you can see those. So that was going to be, I mean, so what if before we do this, I was going to say, looking at those areas of high hazard, in that you would start to think about how you would address and prioritize in this ring around De Anza High School, in that this ring that we're talking about. I think that in my mind, the next steps are to identify the prioritization strategy for within these pockets of high hazard. What are you going to do? And the things that that we would think about are, and this is something that some work that we did in 2017 and in Sonoma County was, come up with these priorities. For us, it was remove clear dead vegetation and shrubs from near roadways, remove eucalyptus and knobcone pine, also Monterey pine. If you don't remove them, then at least prune them up and leave like only the largest trees if you're not going to remove them all. Manage for oak woodlands, manage for oak woodlands. They're more fire resilient than, say, Douglas fir. And create more open forests. So thinning, removing ladder fuels. I mean, this is not new. This is obvious to all of you, but coming up with that list of priorities to implement, and then in this area of high hazard, and then starting to develop your treatment plans and your specific project locations. But one of them is definitely eucalyptus. It's one of the priorities. And here's where the eucalyptus is that we mapped. And these are going to be stands that are greater than a half an acre. And again, the eucalyptus is in purple. The pine, which is almost all Monterey pine around here, is in green. And then we have this non-native forest class, which is in red. So this is a layer that you can turn on yourselves in this map too.
Could you show the legend, Mark, to see if you have any questions about the legend? So the priority is number one, the purple, and then orange, and then how would you prioritize if you were to manage the fuel?
Well, eucalyptus is a high priority. Monterey pine is a high priority, and those are two specific ones that would be important to prioritize.
Okay.
And I shouldn't. I mean, this is not. I'm just. Yeah. Carol Rice is a more expert person to talk to about prioritization, and she's the one who helped us in 2017 sort of identify these priorities. But I think that many would agree that those are important.
Could you zoom in just a bit? We know the area very well, so I'm just curious to see what we're seeing there.
Where would you like me to zoom in?
Anywhere, just zoom in. Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you. Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
As I look at this, I see like the heavily urbanized area by Alvarado Park is, well, it's more heavily urbanized than like the other patches of big purple patches that I'm seeing. That's East Bay Regional Park District land for the most part, but then there's that purple patch that's an empty field that's I think more privately owned.
This one over here?
No, the one to the left, like there's well, the big purple patch there, that's East Bay Regional Park District.
Yeah, and those are tall trees. Those are the mean height's about 100 feet, 93 feet.
They're also in a riparian zone and stabilized slopes, so it's there are a lot of stability and landslide related questions that have to be analyzed before removals.
Sure.
Yeah, we may not have the budget to remove. We may just clear the understory or limb them up. Probably that will be our strategy. But what qualifies a tree to be in the purple? I mean, could there be young eucalyptus groves that don't show in this map?
So yeah, that's a good question. So to be eucalyptus for our mapping, you have to have a half an acre or more. So it's not mapping individual trees, right? We did this across a million acres, so two counties, Alameda and Contra Costa, and our minimum mapping unit's a half an acre. So we're not mapping like every tree. Okay. And yeah, so it's a you need a stand of trees.
Same with the other two categories, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So that is an important qualifier to the question I asked before about eucalyptus, because there are a lot of eucalyptus in the area where I live, where private citizens have been paying thousands and thousands of dollars to take them down.
Sure.
But there's some clumps on city property, just 5, that are literally adjacent to houses. So 5 trees is no half acre.
Yeah, probably not.
Sure.
No, unless they're huge.
I think, Stohelia, to get to your underlying question, it may be having to use this as a very important source of data. But what Henry De Niro has been talking about is that we ought to actually do census of trees next to that are particularly flammable trees next to structures. And within a boomerang, one of those, I forget what those frogs are called, but those things that fly off, that they can go a half a mile, but a
Drone?
lot of them can go a short distance. So
I think you're thinking of drones.
Interesting.
drones,
Yeah.
is that what they're called on eucalyptus trees? Those things that are shaped like a boomerang?
Oh, wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about monitoring, because drones can
No,
do
I was
really
talking
good.
about actually riding the, literally going.
You're not talking about embers, are you?
No, well, I'm talking about a particularly nasty kind of ember. It's not really an ember per se, but some of the leaves on eucalyptus trees fly off.
Oh, the bark, the strips of bark.
I don't
No.
think it's a strip of bark. I don't know. I should learn more. I guess I should learn a vocabulary that better explains what I'm talking about. But there's a piece that flies off the eucalyptus that travels well in the wind.
So
Better
I
than
think
driving.
Mark's got it right. It is the stringy bark. And even in Australia, they categorize the eucalyptus as far as whether they have smooth bark or stringy bark. And then it's those stringy barks that once they are lofted, they have this
Yeah.
long time that it can burn and burn and burn and burn and still have something left after to when it's land to be on fire. So
Yeah.
it is that long stringy bark that is so unusual.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about budgets because I don't know if the West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council has a budget or what pressure it can put on East Bay Regional Park District, but definitely in the Berkeley Fire Safe report, they said the two things that needed to be done were to remove the duff and then to remove the eucalyptus trees. And I hear a lot of like, oh, well, we don't have the budget, but it's like, there has to be some budget or some effort or some will or somewhere to start with the duff removal and then the tree removal in some kind of strategic fashion to get the trees further away from the urbanized area and prevent them from growing back.
I appreciate the question, but that's the next step. This meeting is just to understand what needs to be done. But definitely, yeah, like in tomorrow's meeting,
Yeah.
kind of places we talk about that. But right now, it's very important to understand what needs to be done and how this map help us.
Yeah. I think
So-
what I'm hearing, though, just to kind of confirm so I understand it correctly, is we first focus on doing, you might call it a defensive protection zone between the super high flammable wildlands and structures, right? Yes, thank you.
That sounds smart to me. Yeah.
Yeah, you start there. And then the other piece I wanted to ask is you seem to be defining non-native forest as flammable, but what are those trees? Because of course they're non-flammable and flammable native trees,
Absolutely.
non-native.
Yeah, it could be anything. It could be red maple that's irrigated. So it's just we have a map class. So this vegetation map that I'm showing you, this is a wall-to-wall map of both Alameda and Contra Costa that we're actually still refining and improving. And it covers all the vegetation, and I just pulled out those three classes because it's possible that the non-native class it's more likely that there's some eucalyptus in that class than in a stand of, evergreen hardwood up in the hills. So that's why I included it. So
the other thing is, what about bay trees?
Well, there's a lot of bay trees.
No kidding. That's actually
Yeah.
a big problem because, well, it affects the health of the entire forest. So the evolving forest, what used to be grassland, is rapidly changing to oak, mixed forest. We'll call it mixed oak forest. And what I've noticed is that the bay trees are really drowning the oak trees,
There's a lot of
as well as being
conversion.
flammable. So it seems like we need to look at a program there too. But maybe stage 2, because it's usually riparian zones or up in the in the San Pablo Dam area. That's really bad.
I think thinking about, and again, Carol would have a lot more to say, but yeah, identifying that sort of area, that what you just called it, Marilyn, that strip, right? And where you're kind of working outward from the urban core, and then you're addressing those objectives in perhaps in order: remove the eucalyptus or reduce it, like get the Monterey pine, encourage the oak woodlands where you have conversion happening to other types, and then really importantly, opening up the forest, thinning the dense stands, removing the ladder fuels, so that when you have a wildfire coming into your WUI and into your urban area, that the fire behavior, when it gets close, reduces. It's sort of affected by all of that work that's done, all that, that thinning and removal of ladder fuels. So the fire kind of lays down, hopefully, as it's moving closer to the areas where there's homes, or a lot of homes. So just that kind of, and Carol, please weigh in.
Yes. So I can say that it is amazing how short a distance that you need for fire behavior to change.
I'm sorry, Carol, before you go on, what agency are you with, or what's your background? You're with on the technical software side or fire prevention side, or both?
So I have a degree in forestry and then a master's in fire science, and I've been doing consulting for about 45 years. In fact, you and I talked, Sohaila, about a grant application back last November, and I've been helping fire safe councils, Napa Firewise, Hills Emergency Forum. I've done fire management plans for every large landowner in the Bay Area, public landowner. So, and I am a Bay Area native, so I do know these pieces of land. But
thank you. I just wanted, I appreciate, I'm recording it, and I want people that are listening to you know that you know more than so where it coming from, and also they know what type of questions they can ask.
Yeah,
Carol is being modest. She's probably the leading expert in this region, if not the state, on this stuff. Who wrote the book literally wrote a book called Managing Fire in the Urban Wildland Interface. And
awesome.
Yeah. So
I'll echo that. She has been a steadfast reference for a lot of projects and a lot of determinations of the best plans moving forward. Carol is a force. So
thank you. So as far as prioritization goes, first of all, you always work from the house out. So the idea of working close to structures is always a good thing, and then radiating out. Regarding how fire can change it, I was going to go on and say that you don't have to go for a half a mile for wildfire to change its behavior. You can actually do fire can drop from the canopy down to the surface fire in just a couple 100 feet. Now you're still going to have those embers, so you may want to think about how you're what is going to happen when those embers land, because they'll be landing everywhere. But if you treat your forest such that it will not stay in the canopy, then it'll drop. And canopy fires are always supported by the heat from below. So if you're getting rid of the shrubs underneath the trees, then you're much better off. And so regarding I have to give a shout out to those bay trees on San Pablo Dam Road that have nothing in their understory. So it's a closed canopy forest, and because bay only allows 1% of the light to hit the ground, that the shrubs don't grow underneath. And so even though the bay foliage itself may be kind of flammable after all the water gets heated off, that you don't have much volume of fuel underneath it. So If you have a really close canopy forest, whether it's bay or oak, you might wanna just think about not taking out the canopy as much as really emphasizing the things that are going to burn close to the ground, which are your shrubs underneath.
Thank you very much. I wanna just jump in and add one more question. For what width of the, for example, if you're talking about those green areas that have no structure, if you want to create fire breaks, like shaded fuel breaks, how far? 5 feet, 10 feet, 100 feet?
Well, and part of this depends on what again, going back to those targets. If your targets, what you're trying to keep is structures to burn up, then think about how vulnerable those targets are. If you've got targets on the top of a ridge top, you're gonna have to create more treatment width. Usually a fuel break is 300 feet. Usually it also has a road in it. So we're trying to also think about changing the idea of a fuel break as much as an extended defensible space. So if you're radiating out from a structure, you just keep that defensible space going, and you can have a lot more latitude further away from your house, but just consider it you're treating to keep your house from burning up. Usually fuel breaks are their main purpose is for containment. And at this point, when it's next to the house, all the firefightings are about structure protection.
So in the areas where, you know, the back of the houses are East Bay Regional Parks, people are very nervous and they make requests to East Bay Regional Parks and they say, we're doing a good job. But how far should the clearing be actually? Is it science or?
It is kind of based on science, but it's really difficult to say piece by piece because you'd want to be looking at the heat per unit area of the area and then its slope, steepness aimed at, you know, again, the target. If the typical thing is your house is on the top and then the slope is down below, you'd way back at the East Bay Regional Park District assessment, we were looking at 500 feet, and then looking at how that's your assessment area, and you can make it skinnier if it's just grass, but you may want to use all of that 500 feet if it is a eucalyptus stand.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Sheila, if I can just interject for one moment, I think for any resident in a high fire or very high fire severity zone, addressing zone 0, so 0 to 5 feet in an ember resistant zone, zone 1, 5 to 30 feet from the structure, otherwise known as the lean, clean, and green zone, and then zone 2, 30 to 100 feet from the structure, which is the extended or reduced fuel zone. So we can go through, just like our proposed East Richmond Heights project, shaded fuel break that we've put in for the grant for, right? So Fire can come through and create a shaded fuel break. But if the home has direct fuels in close proximity or 0 to 5 feet of that structure and is hit with a blowing ember or doesn't have a vent guard or the gutter is full of leaves, that completely negates any work that you're doing on a large scale process, right? So that 0 to 5 foot, having a resident clearing that 0 to 5 foot. And my little plug for my wildfire mitigation program, if any resident listening to this recording needs assistance, please reach out to me at Michelle Reinhart at Fire. It's MRINE at cccfpd.org, or you can reach me by cell phone, 925-440-5831. And we can help determine a project that would help your community become more fire adapted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry for interruptions, Mark.
It's great. That's great information because it's so true that, I mean, when we have a extreme wind event and there are embers and coming into the more densely populated areas, that home hardening is the thing that will save structures.
Unless it's such a catastrophic fire, like the ones that have been happening, like the 1991 fire, the 1923 fire, the fire in Paradise, that the structures can't be saved just because there's a conflagration caused by fire coming out of the hills from all of the, massive fuel load in the park district, really, and in other open space places.
Well, this leads, Mark, to my question, perhaps, yes? Because there's actually a very interesting pattern they found out of the houses that survived in Paradise, which has to do with the distance between houses and when they were built. So I'm curious to hear. This sounds like a layer to be added, perhaps.
Yes. I don't know if Carol left. Looks like she did.
Oh,
was-
too bad.
Oh, she's back.
Oh, it's
Oh,
here.
there she
Okay.
is. But Carol, are you there?
Yes.
Oh, great. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the work that is sort of in its early stages and I think it'd be great for Marilyn to hear about that.
So Marilyn, there was a study about how structure to structure ignition it played an important part. But also, Kathy, even in Paradise, there were a lot of structures that were burned and the trees were still intact. So that kind of pointed towards the structures not being as unburnable as we have mapped it and in our fire behavior maps. And the reason why we map it as unburnable is because our wildland fire behavior methods do not have a way to accommodate it, describe it, and then burn it during times. There are 2 models right now, actually more than that. It's exciting times because the scientific community has met the challenge and said, we're gonna see how fires and fuel and vegetation interact in fire spreads. So in fact, we are looking at a way to use this data set to find out how how structures will interact with fire and give us a time spread about where fires will go, and which homes will have a higher propensity for burning. This model is just in its infancy, and it too does not have structure characteristics as to whether or not it is ignition resistant or not. So we're treating all the structures the same, but at least we're treating structures. Short story is that usually in this model, the vegetation burns first, but it ignites the structures, and the structures have a time delay because it takes a while for a structure to actually ignite and then get the heat going, and then it too will cast more embers even further. So it's kind of a leapfrog event. And then they do have another input that shows that a structure has and can produce so much radiant heat that it will ignite the one next to it with a certain proximity. So those are that's a short story of what's going on, but they are starting to tackle structure and vegetation interactions in wildfire. Stay tuned.
Carol, I have a question. So looking at these maps in our area, El Sobrante Valley, what is your advice? If you were to tackle the fuel issue and vegetation management, what would your priorities be? How do you use these maps to convince, for example, the city officials to spend budget on some items?
Yeah, I would turn on that hazard risk to structures layer.
Okay, and then which
And do the
focus on? I mean,
hexagons. Yep. Look at the hexagons.
Is it
And-
fuel reduction in those hexagons, or it's creating fire breaks around that area?
Well, I would I would do a cost share for the homeowners saying, you know, replace your vents. And here's some opportunities to do outreach and education about your zone 0, and then extend that defensible space into the out from the property boundaries.
Thank you. So which one is, I don't want to say which one is more significant, but what fire breaks or fuel reduction or both?
Well, fire breaks, the term fire break is an area that is actually fuel free. So usually fire breaks are in fact a road and a place that has no vegetation on it whatsoever. So I'm not sure we want to live with a fire break, but reduce fuels. Yeah, we can we can definitely reduce the fuels. And so the strata that you want to look at for fuels, I got on my soapbox about shrubs. I would still emphasize the shrubs to keep the fire out of the tree canopy, because it's a whole lot cheaper to treat shrubs than it is to cut trees.
Okay, thank you very much.
But I'm puzzled by this because you're talking about the fire break around, the 5 feet around the house and reducing the shrubbery around the house, and I'm not a fire expert, but I'm just looking at these maps that show the fire hazard. They're correlated very well with these huge eucalyptus forests that we have in the Park District. And it feels very, I feel very powerless because I can complain, hey, Park District, why are you being such a bad land manager? Why are you threatening all of our homes because you've got these enormous eucalyptus forests on your property? Like, they should, the Park District and East Bay Mud also should be better land managers. They should be removing the duff, and they should be removing the eucalyptus trees and reforesting them with our native oaks. And I feel like this kind of conversation that says that we should create a 5-foot ember-free zone around the foundation is not going to do my house any good because I'm surrounded, by the hazard areas. Nothing that I can do, I feel, if a big fire starts in Wildcat Canyon, and one day it will, we're all good, everybody that lives near me, we're all going to lose our homes. They're little claptrap wooden homes in our area, densely urbanized, and, all the 5-foot protection areas around our homes are not going to protect us from a conflagration. And I feel like that conversation saying, well, I would start with, having people replace their vents. I feel that the conversation needs to be, we need to start where the fire is going to be hottest and most fuel laden, or else we're not really addressing the problem, the big problem that faces us, the catastrophe.
Kathy, are you on the east side of Wildcat Canyon or the west?
West.
Okay, so in the East Richmond Heights area.
A little to the north of that. So Alvarado Park, and then if you go over to north a little bit of Alvarado Park, off Hillcrest Road.
Okay.
Up by the I-80 intersection at San Pablo Dam Road. I live on that hill.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I will say that the East Richmond Heights project does go up to that McBride Avenue area. And if we are awarded the grant, that is a $3 million project spanning along the East Richmond Heights property. And if there is another vegetation management area that needs to be addressed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the wildfire mitigation link into the chat. Please feel free to contact me if you'd like to discuss the project further, or if there are additional information that I can help you with. My job is to help with this project identification and make sure that you have the proper support and your community has the proper support within the county, so we can leverage technology, city governments, and this program in order to meet you where you are.
Yeah. Could you rattle off your phone number one more time, please, and your name?
Sure. 925-440-5831. I look forward to your phone call, text message, or email, whatever works for you.
Thank you very much.
You may want to put it in the chat. I have one more question, Mark. So if somebody looks at looks at this map and sees like west of I-80 where there are no colorful hexagons, they may think, oh, they're immune from any wildfires. That's not true though. If there's a wildfire, it's going to sweep the entire town, right?
I think so. Where are you talking about? Like just right in the
that
middle of the
area,
urban
yes.
core here?
Yep.
Um,
why we don't
I'm not going to say
colors
that I'm not going to say that I have no idea whether it's that a wildfire could actually like sweep the entire town. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but I think that the possibility of a wildfire coming to the edge of the urban core is, what our models look at in the inside of the urban core. Like when you get to, to these densely built up areas, there's very little vegetated fuel for the wildfire. There's also
prices? I mean, if you have the Diablo
Well,
winds,
no, there's
blowing
data from
east
the
to west.
91 fire.
yeah, I'm not saying it's impossible.
Starting with what Sohila said, it went across the
Freeway.
freeway. It went across 24.
I'm not
like
saying
lanes.
I'm
Okay,
not saying
so,
it's
but
impossible.
wait.
I live in Snowy County and I saw the fires in 2017. My house burned down. The fire came into Santa Rosa. Nobody thought it could. Absolutely.
Right. So what I'm saying is that in Oakland, in the 91 fire, the consensus of the firefighters was if they hadn't stopped it at the Claremont Hotel, a very large wooden structure, it would have gone to the bay. There was nothing to stop it. So you don't need to have vegetated fuel when you have.
I understand, and
flammable
all I'm saying
structures.
is that we're not this model. The work
No,
that
I'm
we
not
did
saying the
isn't-
model predicts it, but I'm
Yeah.
just responding to Sohilia's question about,
Yep.
I think the answer to that is the most devastating fires in terms of human life as well as structures are those that have taken over, swept through, as you said, the city.
So Hala, that's why I was saying that if we have a vegetation ordinance for Richmond, it should be for all of Richmond, not just the very high SZ zone, because embers will fly. So people have to start thinking about protecting their houses from embers, especially where the Diablo winds are going to push everything. I mean, it's not going to be the whole urban core, but you can tell, where those Diablo winds are going to be pushing stuff. So
I doubt we can convince anybody that should be the case. I mean, the people who did it, I mean, Mark is on the technical side, right? Carol is on the fire side, and there have been probably other people on the fire side that came up with this. So,
no, well, don't forget the state does that. CAL FIRE does not exclude the moderate or even the low. They require that where they have jurisdiction that the vegetation ordinance covers all those properties. So we have to talk about it more, but I think it should go through moderate at least. And to have it only in very high makes no sense.
I think what we need is good, again, modeling fuel models that realistically model the spread of fire from, house to house, structure to structure in the urban core. And then we can use those models to understand which parts of the urban area are at higher risk than others. And then use that information to prioritize, investments in home hardening. And that's, I think, where we're going, but we're just not there yet.
okay. Thank you so much. I just noticed it's 8 p.m. I don't want to keep my guests overtime because we would like to have the ability to invite you again, and hopefully you'll join us again. But you showed us some layers. Are there other layers to the map? And I was a little confused when I was playing by myself, you know, finding the legend, deciphering him and everything. So we saw 3 layers so far: eucalyptus layer, this layer, and the fine fuel model. Are there are 4 layers, right? What is the 4th one? I think that's the boundaries.
Yeah, that's the public lands. The black lines are the parks, the public lands.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So when you open the hexagons, there was a table of information that was like not understandable to me. Is there anything significant about it we should know?
You're talking about this table?
Yes, what does it say?
It really just, the thing that you should know is the symbology field is really the take home for the hexagon. And then the rest is just sort of the details of how we got there. And if you really want to understand the mechanics of the model and how the calculations were made, I would just go to that report, because there's a lot of detail in there that it's a good reference. And I think you put the link to that in your email.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, Devin. You have a Pinole City Council member too, who's going to advocate for us to take more preventive measures in Pinole as well, hopefully. And we have other allies in West Contra Costa County to work together. So I really appreciate the information. Any questions, anyone, before we let Mark and Carol go?
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you very much. It was really informative, and I'm happy that I was able to join you this evening.
Yeah. I want to know if Carol would mind us pestering with a few questions.
Sure. I can, let me type in the email to the group if you still are on. Let's see if I can do this meeting group chat. Okay.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And, you know, your willingness to even share your email address and answering future questions. It's awesome. Thank you so much.
You're sure welcome. Here it is. I can send it. There you go. Oops, with one L. Gmail
One
with
L.
1 L.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a
All right,
lot.
thank you.
So, is it okay to share it with other people or just this a small
She
group?
put it in the chat. We can read it.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. No, I mean, I'm going to share the recording with a larger group. I was asking if I could. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for
Right.
joining us tonight. I really appreciate all the information. I just wanted to make sure we understand this so we can come up with a good vegetation management strategy and encourage, you know, the local authorities to spend budget on what's needed to be done and urge regional agencies like East Bay MUD, East Bay Regional Park District to do their share of the work. So we greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I'll share the link of the recording with everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Good
Yeah,
night.
so yeah. Carol,
Thank
I'm
you.
assuming that it's Gmail with only one L.
Yes, that's right.
Just wanted to be sure, because I caught the 2 L's between Carol and Rice. I mean, the extra L. So I get that's your
Right.
middle initial. Thank you so
Right.
much. And thank you, Mark.
Goodbye now.
I think
Good luck with the
to ask
project.
you to be a miracle worker and do more than you have the data to do. But it's wonderful to have your efforts. They're really, and your explanations. It's really helpful.
Mark's doing miracles. Yep. All right.
Good luck with your
Take care.
projects.
Thank
Thanks,
you
everybody.
for the great work.
Bye
Good